Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Pre-Race. Joe Samaniego here, along with Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish, Amanda Kaufman, and Joshua Birch. A big special welcome to our Patreon subscribers calling the show, Mark Robin, and our newest member, David. They invest in the Grid Network each and every month. You too can invest in the Grid Network each month through Patreon or buy me a coffee, one-time contribution to the Grid Network. And of course, you could buy us multiple cups of coffee, as some of these fine folks have done so. And we encourage everyone be sure to subscribe, like right here on YouTube for all Grid Network programming. And Joshua, what a race weekend we had already. Formula E, Kobe, what a race! What a weekend this was. I feel like this is almost fits into line with the other race we'll talk about later on today at Alabama.
Yeah, it was quite a wild weekend for Formula E. And starting off the show with a recap of the ABB Formula E Berlin E-Prix race weekend. After race one, it looked like Pascal Wehrlein would gain the most from a really crazy opening race of the weekend. 23 lead changes. And yeah, Joe, that sounds just like Talladega. That's going to be coming up later today for the NASCAR Cup Series. Jake Dennis's fourth 9 points finish, and Nick Cassidy out of the points as well. Mitch Evans ended up winning race one with the Jaguar 1-2 finish as Sam Bird did second place. Today, a damp qualifying saw the app team sweep the front row, but after the rain left, they fell back down the running order. Nick Cassidy won race two, and Pascal Wehrlein still in the top 10, but only a 4-point championship lead. Cassidy has outscored Wehrlein in the last four races. I remember at one point we were thinking that Wehrlein and Dennis might run away with this, but now it's quite a championship fight. Can Nick Cassidy be a serious championship contender and be given priority over his teammate Sebastian Buemi?
Well, it's a very hot topic that's been happening, especially today. Now, yesterday in the Formula E drivers' chill room area, Sebastian Buemi got very irritated as well and kicked off his lapel mic as well that you sometimes see me wear on the Grid Tonight show. He kicked off his belt pack and said, no, was not happy. Then this morning, Nick Cassidy was mocking him over the radio as well about it. And the team was saying, no, we'll talk about that later. So honestly, it was absolutely hilarious what was happening between them. And they get along, but there is tension there absolutely between the two. And I think even during the race, Buemi was saying over the radio as well, I'm faster, let me go through, let me be there, let me be quicker as well. But Cassidy was in third place, and then Buemi wasn't. That was in today's race earlier on. But I think after today in race two, Cassidy certainly can be a contender as well for the championship. But so many are up there. The two best races in Formula E history with yesterday 23 overtakes, today for the lead. Of course, today 26 overtakes for the lead. Unbelievable the amount we're seeing. And I'm loving it. I'm loving that it's in a good way. I'm loving that we don't actually know week to week who's who. But it's only the second driver of the year to get double wins. Evans did it, and now we've had Wehrlein do it, and now we've had Cassidy. It's actually the third, I think, repeat winner of the season. So not that bad across 8 races.
Across 8 races, 3 repeat winners. I think overall this is shaping up for a very exciting season. And for Nick Cassidy, that Envision team, they have to be over the moon excited. I feel beginning this year, we weren't talking about that team being a championship threat. A lot of the focus on the usual suspects. Plus, of course, McLaren, which replaced Mercedes. But with Sebastian Buemi, I mean, considering this week, I believe he hit 500 laps led record for Formula E this weekend. He has a long career in Formula E. I think it's going to be very hard to try to tell him, look, you're the number 2 driver right now for the team. Because Nick Cassidy, he has a 1-win wet New York City race last year. Coming in here, I think some people were talking about him. We know several folks picked him for pick a winner. Didn't get him except one person for this race. Will Sebastian Buemi be that driver that says, hey, you're number 2 in the points. You're now 4 points behind the leader. I'm going to be here to help you out, help the team out. That's where I get really concerned that maybe I'm wrong. I just don't see that in him. He's a pure racer. He wants to go out there. He wants to win. He wants to prove he could get another championship. It's going to be really interesting how the Envision team handles this situation, because this is the first time in quite some time, maybe since Sam Bird really, that they got a driver that could really contend for a championship this year with Nick Cassidy, and I think it's has to put the team in a really good, exciting spot. But you guys got to make sure those two drivers don't end up costing each other valuable points throughout the season.
Yeah, for sure. They're gonna have to manage their drivers throughout the course of this season, and hopefully, we don't see fireworks happen in between that. As you say, Joy, could potentially end up hurting the team. And this was the weekend of New Zealand, with the New Zealand national anthem being played twice for the winning drivers. The Kiwis swept Berlin. Mitch Evans putting together a solid race weekend. Now has 2 wins this season, but he's still fifth in the points behind Jake Dennis and Jean-Eric Vergne. Joe, can that Jaguar team improve their consistency?
I think so. It just seems like overall they're getting better and better. Sometimes bad luck, just sometimes the nature of Formula E. This race we saw Sam Bird had to go into pits. That of course took him out. Mitch Evans, he was there. It didn't seem like he really had that good of a shot at the lead, but of course we know for most of the race you didn't want to lead this race. You wanted to be conserving energy. I think a lot of drivers show improvement from the first race where you saw drivers like Jake Dennis put himself in the wrong spot, cost himself a good points finish in the last race. This time, much better performance. Gunther over from Maserati put himself in a really good spot yesterday. Today, he was climbing up the field, but I think a lot of drivers adjusted from what they learned yesterday, put him back. So overall, I think the Jaguar Trinity are improving. I do see them eventually becoming more consistent, and I do think they can contend, at least Mitch Evans, for that drivers' championship.
Yeah, I think me and Jess were talking about it because Ed wasn't with us in the commentary this weekend. He's been doing real life commentary at Daytona karting event as well in, I think, Milton Keynes. But yeah, so Jessica Ball, who's the head at PSGL comms team, was in the box with me this weekend. And we were both really impressed with the Jaguars as well, especially when they hit the front as well. Double yesterday as well, great for them. And I think Sam Bird felt like he could have won yesterday. He was looking a bit dejected in the media pen as well. He felt he could have gone the whole way and could have won the race. Evans, as is always a diamond, I think Evans is going to be a champion soon because he's got the grit and determination. He's got something that we've never seen in this series before, which is consistent pace no matter what team he's in. We've seen other drivers struggle moving around. Sam Bird hasn't won now in a couple of seasons. He's starting to get a little bit itchy, a little bit ready to go and fight. So I think Jaguar, after starting the season with problems with their drive shaft as well, and Mark Preston was in the box with us in Mexico, and Sam retired with that issue. And Mark said it's unacceptable for having reliability issues that are mainly down to the car. And they fixed that now. The reliability is good. The pace is good. Jaguar will be there. And it's not like we're at the halfway stage of the season now. And it's not like we've got a runaway champion at the front. Verlaine is just a little bit ahead, but there's half the season to go with tracks that are completely different than each other. Monaco's next in 2 weeks' time, and that race always throws up drama because we can actually race there. So it's unlike any other. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, really looking forward to getting to the streets of Monte Carlo. And Berlin proved to be the typical Formula E with lots of beating and banging. We saw teams work their way from the back to the front and vice versa. This is Formula E's longest serving track, and we saw a big crowd both days. And we already mentioned the lead changes in race 1, 23 lead change. Josh mentioned race 2, 26 lead changes. And I'm going to pose a question to our viewers out there and comment down in the chat below. Who's going to have more lead changes this weekend? Are we going to see the Formula E race had the most lead changes, or are we going to see it at Talladega? Maybe Formula E give Talladega a run for its money later today. So here's a question I'm going to throw over to you, Josh. Was this what you anticipated from Berlin with the race action, especially with nobody wanting to lead in order to save energy?
Do you know, I saw a stat somewhere that said yesterday's race might have had 1,000 overtakes in it as well. And I don't believe that, because every time a little joke as well, every time I hear the words Berlin in 1,000 years, I can never take it seriously for some reason. That's my history lesson, GCSE, taking it a step too far there. But no, I don't think it was 1,000 overtakes yesterday. There was a lot, and it has been a lot of races to keep up with each other. And myself and Jess were literally every time we would try and draw breath, there would be something else happening. So we were literally going a red raw in the throat, just going like, "This is amazing! Look at this! We've got cars taking attack mode. Vern takes the lead again." By lap 13, Vern had led the race 3 times and had used 2 attack modes. It was unbelievable. I don't think this is what anybody expected. We know Berlin always gives us a great race. We saw that in the Gen 2 era, and we were expecting something of the same. I don't think anybody expected the amount of consistent pack running we had. It's very rare to get pack running on a road course. We've had it here, 2 separate races, and they were different. Yesterday, bone dry circuit as well. Today, the race was damp as well, and it was slipping and sliding, but it was a great event as well. And I have got something to pick up on, by the way. Just before the lights went out at the start of race 2, we saw that there was protesters jumping onto the circuit. We've got a guy on site, actually, Jack Pickering. He's found out that the protesters were from a German climate activism group called Last Generation as well. 5 of them got onto the circuit. They've all been arrested. And I just want to say, everybody has got the right to protest, but do it A, safely, B, peacefully, and also when it's concerning climate, maybe do a bit of research before you go and protest at the only world championship that has been net carbon zero since day one and is actively helping to clean the planet up. It just proves that some people really don't know what they're talking about with the protest groups, because they protested an electric car championship. But yeah, that's a little bit of news I got sent in a couple of minutes ago from Pico over there in Berlin.
That was something I was thinking too, exactly, Joshua. I could understand motorsports. That seems like this platform to do it, but this is Formula E. There's electric cars. This is part of your goal to have no fossil fuels. I think they just got too focused on there's a race in Germany, worldwide television audience. We could do this. But the message was, this is electric cars.
It reminds me actually of a sketch, because we're on the last lap anyway, so we've got about 5 minutes, 5 to leave anyway. But it reminded me a lot of a sketch show over here in the UK. It was with Alan Armstrong, and I can't remember the other gentleman's name as well. But it was a sketch show, and it was a man sitting on the top of a bridge wanting to throw himself on a train track, and this guy comes up and says, "Excuse me, sir, you can't do that." And the guy says, "I'm sorry, I can't." And I said, "No, there's no train service today. They're all on strike, but we are running a replacement bus service." And I thought that's what was running through my mind when we were looking at the Berlin race, because there's no actual Formula One there, so they're protesting the Formula E. It was ridiculous. As I said, everyone's got the right to protest. Everyone's got a voice to be heard, but do it safely, do it peacefully, and just research what you want to do, because this is an electric championship. It was quite funny, and apparently they put some sort of glue on the start-finish line, and that had to be cleared up. But it was actually quite a very hard substance. They had to dry it. That's why the start took a bit longer to be delayed as well, with 6 minutes.
Yeah, it was a bit of a delay, but once the delay was done and they got the racing going, this was typical Formula E. I was a bit surprised more of how it seemed in past years. I recall when Antonio Felix da Costa in this race just dominated the race to get the championship. Then this race, it just seemed like nobody wanted to lead, just trying to allow the other person. So some changes, of course, a couple generations of new cars, track layout. Well, this is the original one compared to Antonio Felix da Costa that year, where they had 6 races, different layouts, reverse order on this track. Overall, the Formula E race, I think, lived up to the expectations. Berlin, I've always seen as one of the tracks where people don't call it a crown jewel race, but it is a race where I feel it does have that stature for being one of the longest running events in Formula E, while Formula E does events every few years or just one-time stops. This has been on the counter quite often, including 2020 during the pandemic, 6 races here to crown a champion. It does stand out for me, and overall, I feel it's just one of the races where I feel this is something for everyone to follow. One quick note: I think NASCAR will have more lead changes, but it's more interesting in shuffling two lines back and forth than overtaking. Joshua, of course, thank you so much for your time with Formula E. Before we let you go, we got to ask you, since I brought up NASCAR, what's your pick of winner for Talladega?
How do you pick Talladega? It's as wild as Daytona. It's a super speedway. So I'm going to ask some help here as well, because I was thinking there's the obvious going in as well with. I was actually thinking about Chase, to be fair, earlier on in there. Is he a good pick for this one? In Chase Elliott back in the championship, just returned. Is he a good pick to go in after qualifying?
After qualifying, he's a bit further back. I know Amanda and I will be going more into it, but it's Talladega. If your car starts up, you got a shot at winning.
Okay, well, I'll go up with bold prediction about Chase Elliott, because I was just thinking, I think it's going to be a bit of a fairy tale if you can do it at all places Talladega. And the reason it's been playing around is because I did watch Talladega Nights coming back into it, and Ricky Bobby as well. And this is where he made his return, of course, in the movie, and after an injury. I think it's a nice little thing if you can do it. But I will be watching this evening, and I will be enjoying eating some ice cream and watching Talladega. Although if that other guy, Jean Paul, whatever his name was, as well, turns up, I'm not. I think we're not going to see some crashes and a jump to the line. I love Talladega. It's so fun. It's one of my favorites.
Talladega becoming one of the classics in NASCAR. And Joshua, thank you so much for your time as always. One comment in the chat room. Edward tried to make it on, but definitely we understand. We encourage everyone visit Formula E Zone. Edward, Jack Pickering, all the work they do, and anticipate probably some videos from Berlin from Formula E Zone. And once again, of course, Joshua, congratulations on 1,000.
Oh, thank you.
Now, of course, Amanda, we got the NASCAR Cup Series at Talladega, 500 miles. So about essentially half of that 1,000 subscribers that Joshua got. But 500 miles, that's 188 laps around this 2.66 mile racetrack, 38 drivers. And like we mentioned to Joshua, if your vehicle starts up and you complete the pace laps, you got a shot of winning this race. This is your first time covering Talladega with us here in the Grid Network. When it comes to Talladega, what stands out the most with this track and this event?
Well, Joshua already touched on it a bit, but the first thing that comes to mind is one of the most quotable movies of all time. I think about 100 Ricky Bobby quotes just popped into my head right now. But after that, I think the unpredictability of this track, and I think also the speed that adds to that. I think that this is going to be probably the toughest race of the season for us to predict when it comes to pick a winner. But I think that the opportunity to see some really close pack running and close racing, like we've seen in past years, also comes to mind, as well as, of course, the opportunity for some really the potential for some late race wrecks that can really shake things up there at the end. So I think that when it comes to Talladega, the word that stands out in my head is the unpredictability of it all.
The unpredictability of it all. I know we posed the question in the chat room, which race will have more lead changes. Adam says NASCAR is his prediction. Josh T submitted his pick winner on Twitter. Also another comment. Adam hopes the race is more tame compared to last night's Xfinity Series race. So it's going to be really interesting to see what all happens as we take a look at the starting lineup and one of the drivers. I think a lot of people always look at as one of the favorites in the Super Speedway, Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin took the pole yesterday. First time he got the pole here at Talladega despite his wins here. But that Toyota is looking fast. In fact, all the Toyotas, all four Joe Gibb Racing Toyotas in the top 10. Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, the other two Toyotas with 23-11, they're 12th and 13th. So they only have 6 cars in this race, the fewest compared to Chevrolet and Ford, of course. We see in the past years, including one year, I believe it was the 2020 Daytona 500, 2021 Daytona 500, where we saw an early big crash take out several Toyotas. The Toyotas, with so few cars, were just struggling to keep up, especially with green flag pit stops. Do you anticipate a similar challenge for Toyota today? And can they overcome and win For the first time since Bubba Wallace won in 2021, no Toyota has won at Daytona or Talladega.
Absolutely, yeah. Just like you mentioned, I think that it can be a really big challenge, seeing as they're the smallest manufacturer with the fewest cars in the field. And that can play a huge role when it comes to pitting, and especially if we see long green flag runs. So I think that a Toyota to come out on top, it's great to see that they qualified so well. So they clearly have the qualifying pace, and I think the Toyotas have been strong uh, during the season over the race in terms of race pace and race running, especially later in the races. But I think that the key for Toyota this weekend would definitely be being able to lock down that strategy, being able to run closely together. It's great that they all qualified uh, fairly close together, all in the top 13. So hopefully that will come into play. And then I think that they, the Toyota team might also have to run into a little bit of luck in the sense that they're able to keep their cars clean and out of trouble. And I think that with that and the pace that they've shown already this weekend, there could be a very good potential for a Toyota to pull this off.
I gotta agree with you. I feel Toyota, one of the drivers I'm looking at, Bubba Wallace, always good at this track. If he could put together a win, get into playoffs, I think that'd be a huge boost of confidence for the rest of the season. 23-11, they're looking good overall. And as you mentioned, the unpredictable nature of this race. If we see something where it almost equalizes, where you have a bunch of Chevys out, a bunch of Fords out, Toyota could be right there, and they have the pace as we've seen in qualifying. But the thing in qualifying, as we mentioned, we saw only one Chevrolet in the top 10. Kyle Larson, ninth place. You look at the top 15, Austin Dillon in 14th. The rest of the Chevrolets, they're further back. In fact, a lot of them are on page 2, including Chase Elliott way back in 29th. Man, I found this very surprising considering Daytona. We always anticipate Chevrolet lockout in the front row with Hendrick Motorsports, Alex Bowman always towards the front. Bowman, 27th. I did not anticipate this. But I gotta ask you, do you anticipate Sherry is possibly focusing more on the race setup rather than the qualifying setup?
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one. Definitely some guys that it seems like are starting a bit out of place, way further back than maybe coming into this weekend I would have put them. And it's no secret that Chevrolet's had a ton of success at this track. I think they're the most successful by far manufacturer at this track. So I would have to guess that yes, they're focusing on race pace, and their setup for today would be what their main focus is, and maybe that's what hurt them in qualifying. And I think that also, as we've mentioned, the unpredictability of this race means that they still are they still very much have a chance. It just depends what happens in terms of if there's a wreck that takes out some of the front runners, how they pit. I think that their strength will come from having so many cars in the field and being able to rely on that in a way that maybe the Toyotas can't.
You bring up a great point. Green flag pit stops. All those Chevrolets pitting together, they get in the line. They're going to outnumber the Toyotas, potentially even the Fords. If the Fords have a sloppy pit stop, I feel Chevrolet with their huge advantage, they could have a sloppy pit stop and have half the Chevrolets pit, and I think they'll still be just as equal, maybe a little better than if the Fords and the Toyotas especially were online. Chevrolet, of course, most of their drivers have won most of their races this year more than the other manufacturers. So they have that strength in numbers, but one equalizer in this race, when we've got to talk about Talladega, the big one. Traditionally, 10 cars or more in a big crash. Lately, we've seen smaller, multiple crashes that still take out 5, 6, 7 cars scattered throughout the race. It seems to have changed a bit. Last year, a lot of people came in concerned with the safety of the next gen car, especially in the fall race. Thankfully, a very safe race. We didn't see a big one. But yesterday, the Xfinity race, we saw a big one after essentially the turn 4 area as they were approaching turn 3, entering turn 4. Daniel Henry got sideways, upside down, even took out the camera along the turn 4 fence, coming to a stop upside down outside of turn 4. Again, of course, Blaine Perkins barrels 7 times down the back stretch, named after the Alabama gang. He was transported to the hospital, but definitely it looked like he was a bit shaken up as he climbed out of that car. It just Talladega, the big one. We've seen cars get airborne. Any concerns about potentially that big one occurring in today's race?
Yeah, definitely. And it was great to be able to see Blaine walk away from that. That was a massive crash. And great to hear that he's doing all right. But I think that we've said it already on the show, talked about the unpredictability of Talladega. But I think one of the easiest things to predict, maybe easier than picking a winner, would be the potential for the big one, or at least a massive wreck that shakes up the field to occur. Um, so yeah, I think there are definitely some concerns, and I would imagine that the teams are already already factoring that into their strategy for this race. And I think it has the potential to shake things up. So I would say yes, there's definitely valid concerns when it comes to seeing the big one, and hopefully the safety measures that have been taken in the past few years will allow everyone to walk away just as Blaine did.
That's the big thing. The safety measures, especially the safer wall. We know NASCAR has done some work on the offseason to that back clip. If they all work and every driver walked away, I think that's the big goal everyone wants to see at the end of each race. Now, at the end of the race, we're going to have a winner. And with Talladega, we have the past winners of this year, all highlighted in yellow. So there's still a lot of drivers looking for their first win. They feel this is their best opportunity, especially the smaller teams. Michael McDowell, Todd Gillian, Harrison Burton, Eric Almirola, not having a good year. He's won here before. He'll love to get a win, get into playoffs. Over in the Chevrolet side, Corey LaJoy, Legacy Motor Club. While Corey LaJoy, I think it's been surprising a lot of people this year. Legacy Motor Club, I think, has to be a disappointment considering last year they saw Eric Jones come off strong, get a win. This year, him, Noah Gregson way behind in the Rookie of the Year challenge with Ty Gibbs. Which driver without a win this season are you looking at to be most likely to be in victory lane?
You know, I, like we said, this is so unpredictable and there's no good way to tell, but I think that I'm going to put all my money, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to put all my money on the Toyotas for this race. I think that Denny starting up front maybe will have the confidence to really make sure the team is bringing the strategy for this race as much as you can with a race as unpredictable as this. And like you said, I think for Bubba Wallace and in the 2311 car, it could be just the motivation he needs, just the boost that he needs to come home with this win and turn his season around. So those would be my two picks for drivers that without a win that could potentially bag their first win here today.
One driver I'm looking at, it's not going to be my pick winner, but I feel he has a lot to gain if he gets a win. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised either because he's had a pretty good season. Todd Gillian, especially considering what he's going through this year with not doing every single race. If he could get that surprise win today, I think that will just really position himself for his Cup Series career, and I think he's going to be extra driven this race weekend. Of course, Talladega later today. After the race being done, we're going to be back on the air for Grid Life Wrap Up, approximately 90 minutes following the conclusion of the NASCAR race. But one race we got to recap, a race weekend, World Rally Championship, Amanda, and especially the race, I say, had a lot of emotions in that event.
Right, like you said, Joe. Obviously, many heavy hearts this weekend in the community at Rally Croatia, especially after the loss of Craig Breen last weekend. And this weekend, we saw tributes from all of the teams in his memory. At the end, Elfyn Evans took the win, a first for him this year, and he was a whopping 27 seconds ahead of second place, so a commanding win at that. So, Joe, my question for you would be, how surprising was it that Elfyn Evans won here at Croatia?
It really shouldn't be a surprise just because he has won races. He's good all the time. But just the fact that the last few races, Kyle Rovanpera, Sebastian Ogier, he always seems to be that third place driver. Now, of course, Rovanpera getting that flat earlier this race weekend, Ogier a flat and a penalty. So his two Toyota teammates were behind. Thierry Neuville, he was up front all day Friday, but then Saturday morning crashed out. Tough break for him. We know he and that Hyundai team really want to win this race. So this just put it all for Elfyn Evans to get that win. So overall, I feel like it was the circumstances that allow him to get that win. It has to be a reminder to everyone he is a talented World Rally Championship driver. He was contending a couple seasons ago for the championship against his teammate Sebastian Ogier during 2020, but still, he could go out there, he could contend for championships. I think it's not really a surprise. It's just the fact that since he hasn't been that top Toyota lately, people are surprised to see him get the win, especially when OJ's in the field. First time OJ did not win a race in World Rally Championship this year.
Yeah, I have to agree that with that such a commanding win, it seems like a powerful reminder of what he's capable of. So, one follow-up for you, Joe. For the WRC weekend, how much did it help to have everyone back racing again, especially after the events of last weekend?
It really was helpful for, I think, not just everyone on World Rally Championship, the teams, the drivers, everyone involved with that sport, along with the fans World Championship, but for everyone that does at least follow World Rally Championship to some level to see the drivers, the teams, and the racing action back on the track was very helpful. We know with motorsports, we're a tight knit community, and there's a lot of folks that their tight knit community is not just in one specific series. They follow multiple series, just like how a lot of us here on the Grid Network follow all the series in the grid ranking and now getting into especially more the endurance performance index and the sports car racing. We know some folks that didn't follow World Rally Championship that closely still were really sad and grieving the loss of Craig Breen. To see the racing going on, the thrills of victory, the agony of defeat, racing has always been one of those sports I feel has just been a great way to be a distraction from everything hard going on, whether it's in your personal life, current events around the world. And unfortunately, that includes racing after the passing of a driver. It's really hard. I think, as Larry McReynolds has once said, sometimes you just sit down and ask, why do we do this? It's because the love of motorsports, the passion we have for auto racing, pushing the limit. And as everyone kept saying this weekend, Craig Bain, he would have wanted us to be back racing again. He didn't want us to just sit around because he loved it. And like Craig Green said, life is short. You got to have fun, especially in a World Rally Championship. And I think everyone contributed their race performance this weekend, good or bad, in the memory of Craig Breen. And definitely was something where I think a lot of folks are going to remember this race as the first race back since then. And of course, hopefully, the rest of the World Rally Championship year continues on safely. When it comes to the grid ranking, of course, World Rally Championship, that race is now in the books. Taking a look at the updated projections for the grid ranking, of course, we don't have the projections yet from World Rally Championship, but looking at Formula E, we can tell you Pascal Wehrlein will stay in the top 10, and then Nick Cassidy will be most likely in the top 20 now after he got his win. So overall, it's shaping up. And then, of course, Talladega is the next race today. So that's going to continue to change. Christopher Bell, he could get up towards the top 10 further up. And, of course, Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, they're going to be trying to improve their positions in the grid ranking. And, of course, the full grid ranking will be released at the wrap-up show later tonight following the race at Talladega.
All right, thank you, Joe. And now it's time for everyone's favorite game, pick a winner. So looking at the leaderboard, we have a 4-way tie for the lead, and this is the first time this has ever happened in the 3-year history of Pick a Winner. So Alex was the only correct guess for race 2 with Nick Cassidy, and the only correct guess so far this weekend. But don't worry, to break the tie, we have Talladega. So for everyone watching, make sure to comment in the chat who you think will win Talladega and try to get your name on the leaderboard. So we'll start with you, Joe. Who's your pick for pick a winner for the NASCAR GEICO 500 at Talladega?
I thought about what Kobe said last week, just get a hat, everyone's name, and see who comes out. I think, though, Chevrolets are going to have that advantage. Granted, the big one doesn't take, a bunch of them out. I'm going with a driver that has won here before. He'll be the comeback story after breaking his leg. Chase Elliott, the number 9, I think will find himself in victory lane, lock himself into playoffs because we don't have that top 30 rule anymore. Chase Elliott is my pick for Talladega.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to see Chase Elliott go to victory lane. He had a great win there. You remember in the playoffs in the fall, and it would not surprise me to see Chase Elliott do that again. And Joe, I'm surprised he didn't make a NASCAR Wheel of Destiny for Talladega. It would be very, very helpful. But I know the Fords have been really strong on the super speedways. Although it seems like Toyota has had the advantage in qualifying, I'm going to go with a Ford driver, one of the RFK Fords. Give me Chris Buescher to get it done at Talladega.
Interesting. Both good picks, both equally possible, I guess. And I think for me, I'm just gonna pick a winner who hasn't won yet and who I'm just gonna keep picking until he does. Maybe no surprise considering the shirt that I'm wearing, but my pick for today would have to be Denny Hamlin.
All great picks. I feel Denny Hamlin knows how to get it done at Talladega, and I think it's going to be a very exciting, fun race weekend. And of course, we want to thank all our Patreon subscribers, calling the show, Mark Robin, and our newest member, David, for investing in the Grid Network every month. Once we hit $500 a month, we could be sending folks to the track, bringing you even more coverage from the tracks and more drivers to chat with. You can also contribute through Buy Me a Coffee. We'll have your name read on the air as you contribute on the air, and you could buy multiple cups of coffee if you want. Be sure to follow us on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We're all over the place. Every Wednesday we post our Pick a Winner video. We have more programming throughout the week, including the wrap-up show tonight. Then we have Grid Encore tomorrow, every Monday, where they're going to recap Xfinity Series, as well as some of the other feeder series from across the globe. Wednesday, Grid Tonight, hosted by Kobe Lambis, Joshua Burst, and Matt Whitewell. They'll update the Grid Endurance Performance Index, and then Friday, the Women in Motorsports. Then we do this all over again. We want to thank everyone for tuning in for a special Grid Life doubleheader race day Sunday. For Amanda Kaufman, Kobe Lambith, I'm Joe Samaniego. Thank you for watching today's show. We'll see you next time, and enjoy the races. Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.